Friends, I am very thankful to the Ramakrishna Vedanta Society for asking me to give these 3 public lectures. This is a beautiful hall. For the first time, we are meeting in this hall, fine surroundings, and fortunately, we have a bright day. 3 subjects you have heard just now announced, all important ones, and today's subject is important to all people, philosophy of work. Since there will be a question-answer session after the lecture and a brief interval, there will be plenty of occasions to raise questions, to amplify and to clarify what is said during the lecture. In fact, all these subjects need lot of questioning so that we can make the subject richer. In all these lectures, there is no atmosphere of a sermon, take it or leave it attitude. We are all trying to find out a philosophy that can help us to achieve life fulfillment. That means we have to put our heads together. Vedanta, the great philosophy of India, of nearly 4,000 years ancestry, is deeply committed to discuss subjects with students, answer their questions and criticisms, and then evolve a beautiful philosophy of human life. That is the greatness of Vedanta among the philosophies of the world. It welcomes questioning. It encourages questioning, because truth is the aim, not just a creed or a finished dogma. When human beings begin to seek truth, when they give the mind a proper training for such a search, human life becomes rich, beautiful, and fulfilled. That is the great conviction of the great sages of the Upanishads, who created this remarkable philosophy several thousand years ago. They discussed this great subject of work, and this forms the theme of a whole book, namely the Bhagavad Gita. That is a remarkable book. It takes man from the center of work, imparts to him a philosophy by which he can utilize that work to achieve a double purpose: the welfare of society around him and his own spiritual growth and fulfillment. That philosophy is called yoga in the Gita. Remember, the word yoga is used in many senses, and most people in the West know yoga only as physical culture, physical exercise. But yoga in the Gita has nothing to do with physical exercise or other types of yogic practices known as breath control, etc. Here, yoga in the Gita means a philosophy of life and work by which human beings achieve spiritual fulfillment. How to manipulate that work situation by which human beings can achieve this blessing. That is a philosophy that is given in the 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the Song Celestial. It is a wonderful book. When it was first discovered by Western thinkers, they were amazed, because the West knew only religion as something dogmatic, theology based on creed and dogma, without any place for questioning in it. But when they saw in the Gita a philosophy of life, not just a creed or a theology. That philosophy which you can question, and that philosophy which is centered in man at work, not man at prayer. Most religions deal with man at prayer. Religion comes to you when you sit for prayer. Take any religion. The emphasis is man at prayer. But in the Gita, man at work is the emphasis. Here is a stone cutter, there's a housewife, there's a doctor or a nurse or administrator. They are all working. Gita whispers to each one of them that this work situation has to be handled properly. That philosophy is what world needs today, and the Gita contains it in simple language, in the form of a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. That's why the Western people, when they came in touch with it in the last century, first the translation by Sir Charles Wilkins, a Sanskrit scholar of the East India Company in Calcutta, published by the East India Company, and the whole project was initiated by the first British Governor General of India, Warren Hastings, about 1772-1783. Now that was the first translation that created a tremendous impact on readers in the West. Then a few decades later, the great British writer and poet, thinker, Sir Edwin Arnold, published his famous book, The Song Celestial, a free rendering of the Bhagavad Gita, with that wonderful title, The Song Celestial, celestial music, not ordinary music. Thereafter, many commentaries and translations have come in all parts of the world. That book is available everywhere. But we have to enter into that book. A profound philosophy is being communicated in the 700 verses of this great book. We have a beautiful idea in the Gita that there was a philosophy in the Upanishads several millennia before the Gita. Those Upanishads gave us one remarkable message, that man is essentially divine. Behind this body-mind complex is a profound divine spark in each one of us. This is a truth discovered by several sages. As a truth, they communicate this discovery to the world at large in that great immortal literature, the Upanishads. Man is essentially divine. As I said, it is not an opinion or a guesswork, it is a realization. The language used is, I have realized this divine immortal dimension in me, and I see it also in you. You try to realize it. That was the message of the Upanishads. So many people realize this truth thereafter, of which the most brilliant example is Buddha, who sat in meditation under that Bodhi tree about the 6th century BC, realized this great truth, got up from his meditation and said, I have realized the immortal. I am free. I am free. It was that great teacher who illumined the lives of millions of people throughout Asia in the coming decades. So that here is a profound truth conveyed in the Upanishads by a galaxy of great sages, highly intellectual, very pure in life. They could discover this profound truth and communicate it to the world outside. Esha sarvesha bhuteshu budho atma na prakashate drishyate svadhyaya buddhya sukshmaya sukshmadarshibihi. This is a verse from that Kathopanishad, which will be the subject of study at the Levra Ganesha Ashrama retreat. A beautiful Upanishad, highly appreciated by Western people when they got this in translation. This infinite Atman, the divine, is in the heart of all, says the verse. But it is lying hidden. But it shall not lie hidden all the time. You can make it manifest. when your mind is more subtle, more pure, more concentrated, then this truth shines in the mind. That is the challenge given in that Upanishad. Like fire hidden in ashes, when you touch it, there is no fire, yet fire is there. So also the infinite Atman is hidden in every human being. What religions and theologies call God, which they locate somewhere in the heavens, Vedanta locates it in every human being. God is hidden within this experience itself as eternal self of man. This has to be realized. So say the sages in the Upanishads. And it can be realized here in this human life, not in a heaven. That's why this subject is expressed again and again, that nature has given man the organic capacity to seek for truth both in the external world, which is physical science, and in the inner world, which is the science of religion. We have that organic capacity. There is no conflict between science and religion. The fields are different, but the seeking is only for truth. Truth in the world outside, truth within man. It is in man that you discover the supreme truth. The world is a mystery, even after all the investigations of physical science. But when you clear this mystery, then that mystery becomes clear. We shall realize that that same infinite Atman is behind nature as well as behind man. The whole universe is filled with the Spirit of God, say the Upanishads. So here is a challenge thrown to every human being. Can you realize this truth before this body falls away within this short period? What a profound achievement it will be. Even discovering a North Pole or a South Pole or the Mount Everest or something of these considered to be a profound achievement. But discovery of the infinite behind the finite, the immortal behind the mortal, must be the profoundest discovery. That is the challenge the Upanishad summoned every human being to take up in the context of his life itself. This was taken up by people who renounced life. They went to the forest, they went to the hills, they went to monasteries. Alone, they tried to experiment it. Then came the Gita. Why go here and there? You can realize this truth wherever you are. That is the greatness of the Bhagavad Gita. For the first time, a practical approach to the subject of spirituality you find in the Bhagavad Gita. A message to every human being the Gita conveys. Not for an ascetic or a mystic. They are a very small number of people. They are good people, great people. But they are only a small number. The millions of people, what was religion to them? Just a piety. And that too, increasingly a static piety. Once a week, go to the church or a temple, go down half a dozen times, everything regulated like a military drill, and you see you have become religious. Finished. Nothing more is there. That was the way millions of people were served the subject of religion. Then came the Gita and said, no, what the sages achieve, you can also achieve. You have that organic capacity. I shall show you how to do it. There is a science, there is a technique by which this divine can be realized here and now in this very body, not in a post-mortem heaven. That is the supreme orientation this subject of religion received from Bhagavan Sri Krishna about 1400 BC. The Gita is considered to be the product of 14th century BC in actual spiritual teaching. It must have taken longer time to put it into this particular literary form. But the teaching, the Gita or the Mahabharata battle, took place about 1400 BC. The other characteristic that shines through the Gita is that it is a message conveyed not in a cell of a monk, nor in the forest, but in the thick of a battlefield, where everything is action, everything is tension. In the very midst of it, you find a profound message emerging, a message of spirituality, message of strength, message of perfection here and now. That is also another profound characteristic of the Bhagavad Gita. So, in 18 chapters, 700 verses, what do you get? Many English writers call this book the longest philosophical poem in the world. Such a long poem, 700 verses, and the whole thing is philosophy. And yet, not academic philosophy, dry philosophy which you get in the universities, a philosophy that deals with life at close quarters, that gives you a meaning and significance to human life. That's the nature of philosophy you find in the Bhagavad Gita. At the end of every chapter, there is a descriptive statement about each chapter. What does this chapter contain? What is the philosophy contained in this chapter? There you will find the statement in Sanskrit. Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su. Thus, in this great Bhagavad Gita, Upanishad Su, it is as great as an Upanishad. Upanishads are the source of all these teachings. This also is like an Upanishad. Brahma Vidyayam, the supreme philosophy of God, or the science of God, is what is taught here. But not merely science, but also the technique of realizing the truth for yourself. Yoga Shastre. What a beautiful combination. Pure science plus applied science. Upanishads gave you pure science. Science of God, hidden in every human being. But how to achieve it? Gita says here is a technique. I shall convey to you. That's called Yoga Shastre. And the whole thing is communicated through a very charming dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Two masterminds. One a hero of action, the other a hero of vision, contemplation, understanding and realization. That's the combination you get between Arjuna and Krishna. Arjuna was a man of action, a great hero in a Mahabharata battle, the third Pandava among the 5 Pandava brothers. That is Arjuna. Krishna and Arjuna were close friends, intimate friends. Krishna becomes a charioteer in that battle. In the midst of the battlefield, 2 armies are ready to fight. Just then, there is a pause before they began the battle. Arjuna gets a confusion. Is it worth doing all this work? Why not I go back and become a monk, live in the forest, forsaking all this? This is terrible. Work is terrible. Battle is still more terrible. So he becomes a little nervous. He breaks down. I don't want this battle. Let me go. So Krishna conveys to him this beautiful philosophy of life and work. Don't run away from battle. Don't run away from work. That's not the correct way. Face your challenges. Face your difficulties. Overcome them. That is real strength. Anyone can run away when there is a little difficulty. That's not proper for you. Meet the challenge of life with the challenge of philosophy. That's the way Krishna advises Arjuna. Meet the challenges of life with the challenge of an adequate philosophy. Adequacy means it must be rational, it must be intensely practical. That's the type of philosophy Krishna conveys to Arjuna through all these 18 chapters. And then, at the end of the 18th chapter, you find a beautiful idea. It was there, Krishna telling Arjuna, I have conveyed to you this great philosophy of yoga. With the help of which, you will be able to conduct your life in your own way. So I now leave you to do what you think proper. I don't ask you to do this and that. I have given you the lamp of wisdom. Now find your own way. That's a beautiful sentiment in the 18th chapter. Yathechasi tatha guru. Do what you think best. I have given you the profoundest wisdom. Now think about it and do what you think best for yourself. There is not that coercion by the teacher on the student. Give him the light. Let him find his own way. That's a beautiful idea. In the several chapters, you find Krishna telling, I shall give you enlightened reason by which you will find your own way in life. I did not tell you do this and do that. Much of religion is a few do's and don'ts. That's what we don't like today. All humanity dislikes do's and don'ts. A number of catechisms. Thou shalt not do this, thou shalt do this. Most people dislike it. Except for babies, it has no meaning. Krishna never gives you do's and don'ts. He gives you reason. And then finally, gives you perfect freedom to accept or reject what he has told you. So in the 18th chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna, I have now communicated you the profoundest wisdom. Idate jnanamakhyadam. I have communicated to you the profoundest wisdom. Guhyat vishvataram maya. It is profounder than the profoundest. Sarvametat asheshena. He says, consider all these things. Divrishya. Yathechasi tatha guru. Do whatever you think proper. This is the beautiful advice Krishna gives towards the end. Then comes Arjuna's response. A beautiful idea. What does philosophy do to any human being? Arjuna gives the answer. Nashto moha smritil labdha tvat prasadat mayachyuta sthitosmi gata sandeha karishye vajanam tava. He says, I have heard your great exposition. I have listened to it. I have understood it, thoroughly considered it in my own mind. My mind has become steady. My delusion is gone. When our minds are deluded, we are not able to judge properly what action we should do in a particular situation. So the delusion must go. Philosophy is meant to give you clarity of mind. This delusion, to remove that delusion is a function of philosophy. So Arjuna says there, Nashto moha, my delusion is gone. Smritil labdha, I have regained my memory. When you are in a deluded state, your memory doesn't function properly. You don't know what you are. You do all the mistakes at that time. But he says now, as a result of this philosophy, my memory is steady now. Then, Nashto moha smritil labdha tvat prasadat mayachyuta. Through your kindness, I have achieved this. Sthitosmi, and my mind is steady. Gata sandeha, my doubts are gone. Shall I do this? Shall I do that? As we say in Shakespearean language, to do or not to do, there is a question. That kind of doubting situation is no more there. I now see my path clearly. Finally he says, Karishye vachanam tava. I shall follow what you have asked me to do. Krishna gave him all permission to decide for himself. But he says, your decision is very perfect and I am going to follow your own exhortation to me. In this way, the book ends in the 18th chapter. From this, you will realize that it is a philosophy meant for all people in this situation of work, in this situation of life. We have all our challenges every day. What we need is a lamp that can help us to find our way. That lamp is a lamp of wisdom. That is what Krishna gives in the name of the Gita. And as I said in the beginning, the greatest emphasis is man at work. Most people are working for something or the other. Without work, there is nobody. In the 3rd chapter, which is called Karma Yoga chapter, philosophy of work chapter, Krishna says that not one person sits quiet even for a minute. Some work is going on all the time. So, since we are doing all the time work, how shall we utilize this work situation to educate myself, to improve myself, to enrich myself in a fundamental way? That's a very serious question. Today, for the first time, that question has assumed serious proportions. Today's challenge to us, after nearly 100 years of industrial revolution, is work has become drudgery to all people. Creative element in work is completely lost. We work just to earn money, to enjoy some pleasure and nothing else. It has no spiritual value. Today, all spiritual value has been drained out of work. Man has become reduced to a machine, and that mechanizing has gone on for 100 years, and we realize it today how this modern philosophy of materialism has reduced human beings to a mere machine. What the difference between man and machine is a very important question for us today. Gita will tell you there is a profound difference between man and a machine. It is that difference that makes possible for developing a philosophy of work, so that philosophy will help you to achieve something which no machine ever achieves. What is the basic difference between man and a machine? Both do work, and machine does more work than any human being. Machines are more efficient. That's why in today's industry, we dispense with men and that everything is done through machine. Automation means that. Why should you want human beings? Machines will do everything. So that this idea that machine does work, man does work, and there is nothing more about man is ruinous to the spirit in man. We don't realize that man is a spiritual dimension. But the first thing Gita will tell every human being, never forget when you are working that you have an inner life which no machine has. Machine has an external face. It has no inner face. That's a profound teaching. It's the truth about man. Taila Deshadan, famous paleontologist who died some years ago, in his book Phenomenon of Man, repeats this idea. In man, you find an inwardness which you found slowly developing in evolution from the living cell up to the human level. In the sun and moon and stars, there is not that inner life. There is not that inwardness. Everything is outward there. But when the living cell appears, nature reveals an inner dimension of herself in that tiny cell. It is that inner dimension that becomes much more expressed when evolution rises to the human level. In man, there is that inner dimension. That should not be forgotten. So that when you do work, take this fact into account. What is that work doing to me in my inner dimension? Most people do not consider this question at all. Today, particularly in the highly materialistic civilization, mechanized civilization, this idea of inner life is not understood by anybody. But that is the truth. That is why, because we neglect this inner life in the context of life and work, that inner life is all empty to most human beings in this modern age. And all the ailments of the body politic arise from that neglect of the inner life. All the psychic distortions come from there. Therefore, by this great neglect, we have distorted the human psyche. We have distorted the social situation today. We need a new philosophy which can correct this distortion, restore man to his own inner health and well-being, and make him richer and richer inward as he feels richer and richer outwardly in material wealth and pleasure. And so, this is the first truth Gita emphasizes in its philosophy of work, that every human being has an inwardness which no machine ever had. To purchase a machine, put it to work, it does lot of work, and through work, it really enriches the world around us. Economic enrichment comes only through the activity of a machine. But the machine has no inner life. After 10 years or some years, you throw it away, put it in the scrap heap. That's what we do with a machine. It becomes junk, as we say. A machine becomes a junk when you have used it enough. But a man also becomes a junk. That's what we think today. Once your work is over, you become a junk. Soon as you retire, you become a junk. Absolutely no value system for you. Why? We never understood the inner life of man. We understood only the outer life, just like any machine. But this is the truth. Every time you work, you certainly disturb the ratio of energy systems in the external world. Whatever work you do, you have disturbed the world around you, either for good or for bad. But when you work, you also disturb the energy system within yourself. You have put a mark in your own inner system. Your mind has been imprinted by the work that you have done. It is this constant imprinting of the mind by the work that you do that constitutes your character, your personality, your being. Everything is done by that only. This is completely neglected in modern understanding of work. A machine never has an inner samskara developed through work. A Sanskrit technical term, samskara, means innate impression, an impression given to the mind. Every work leaves an impression on the mind. Every work leaves an impression on the world outside. In the machine, only impression is outside. In man, impression is outside as well as inside, whether you like it or not. Now, if you don't reckon with this inner impression, you will not be able to achieve life fulfillment, because it is this handling of the inner impression that will lead you to either joy, sorrow, success, failure, depression, all these evils which you find today coming one after the other, because we did not take account of this wonderful inner dimension of human life apart from the external dimension. The Gita begins with this beautiful idea that whenever you work, you are creating your own character. You must know how you do it. Can you do it in a masterly way so that you grow spiritually? You grow richer and richer within, greater peace, greater tranquility, greater love, greater compassion, a sense of richness, what I call in biological language, a qualitative enrichment comes to you. Until then, it is only quantity, how much work you have done, how much production you have done. That's what we ask always. That's a beautiful question. Machine does it better than me. But this qualitative enrichment comes only when I take this impact upon my inner life from every work that I do. Therefore, the Gita says, take care how this work that you do is affecting your own mind. What impressions you are gathering in your mind, what samskaras, what tendencies are being created in your mind. Because ultimately it is this, what you call bundle of tendencies in you that will constitute your personality, your psychic bent, your way of dealing with the world later on. Everything depends upon this. So how to handle this is a big subject, and that's what Krishna advises all humanity to study and discover for oneself. The Gita helps us how to do so that through work we can achieve an inner development, inner fulfillment, which we generally achieve only in the external world by our work. We enrich society by our work. I am a good farmer. I cultivate my fields. I produce bumper harvest. I increase the economic strength of the community in which I live. That's a beautiful contribution that we make, and it is worth doing it. But while doing so, it only advises us, see that what kind of impression the work is making on you. If that impression is good, you will be fine. If that impression is bad, you will be bad. You have to find this action on you of the work that you do by close scrutiny. This yoga of the Gita helps us to undertake this scrutiny, and finally a conditioning of the mind deliberately by our own reason. It is why Gita uses the word reason to guide us in the time of action. Let your action be guided by buddhi or reason, says Krishna in the second chapter of the Gita. Buddhi must guide our action. Buddhi is enlightened reason. In fact, the yoga that is taught in the second chapter is buddhi yoga, yoga of reason, yoga of understanding. That's buddhi yoga. And buddhi yoga is highly praised in the Gita. Let your reason operate on the work that you do, so that the inner dimension will also be taken into account along with the outer dimension. After saying this, Gita gives a definition of yoga as taught in the Gita. It is a famous definition given by Krishna. Nowhere you will find this kind of definition. What is yoga? You will see when you study Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, you will find one type of definition. Yoga is stopping the vibrations or modifications of the mind through concentration. That is the definition given there. Here's a different definition given here. Yoga is one. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Equanimity is yoga. One definition given here. But the most important definition given in the second chapter is yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga is dexterity, efficiency in the field of action. Can you do your action effectively, efficiently? That's a beautiful idea. But when you hear the statement, yoga is efficiency in action, you may ask, what has Gita to say something new to us? Today's technological civilization is based on efficiency. The most efficient action we are able to achieve today. That's why such a big industrial development, wealth, everything has come to us only through efficiency. So efficiency is not a new idea for modern man, because modern man is brought up on the very concept and technique of efficiency. Then what more the new thing is Gita to say? Yes, Gita has to give you a profound dimension of efficiency which modern man has not understood. That is what Gita is going to say. For efficiency has a double component, says the Gita. We understand only one component, how much protection you have done. What does the state tells you when you are employed? What protection have you done? Protective efficiency, the state wants to achieve through you. Industry, agriculture, professions, everywhere. How much protection you have done. Productivity is the yard by which we measure. But only one type of productivity, economic productivity or external productivity. That's all what we know. Gita welcomes it. That's a beautiful idea, but it is insufficient. So far as man is concerned, for a machine that is enough. External productivity is the highest that a machine has to care for. But so far as man is concerned, the concept of efficiency must have a double dimension, not merely an external productivity dimension. What is that dimension? That is a gentle murmur, a whisper from Krishna. Are you feeling richer within yourself as a result of protective efficiency outside? You have produced so many goods and services for the community. That's beautiful. But are you feeling richer thereby? Stronger thereby? Or are you feeling like an empty individual, day by day getting empty here? Though enriching society, I feel empty within. That is a very inefficient type of work. Real efficiency in work comes only when you feel inwardly richer, purer, nobler, more fulfilled, along with every step that you take to enrich the outside world through your efficient labor. So let your efficiency be a double-edged efficiency, external productivity efficiency, internal spiritual efficiency. If you combine these two, you have the message of the Gita, the yoga of the Gita. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga is efficiency in action. When you don't take this second factor into account, by the time we finish our working life, we become frustrated, bored. These are the words you find often used today. Everybody getting frustrated, bored, alienated. So many new words are coming all the time, only because we have seen efficiency only in one dimension. And we are angry with that efficiency today. That's why young people don't want to work today. Even when the hippie movement started, they were all against work. We don't want work. We want to lounge about. We're not interested in work. Why should I enrich this society outside? We don't want it. Because of this wrong understanding of the concept of efficiency, pendulum swings from hard work to laziness. There is nothing middle at all. Either do hard work or become lazy. The Gita gives us insight into the complete dimension of efficiency. So where the man is concerned, efficiency must involve not only productive economic efficiency outside, but inward spiritual efficiency as well. So that day by day, I feel richer, stronger, purer. And the day comes when I give up work, when I retire, I don't feel alienated. I don't feel frustrated. I have achieved something rich here. I can continue on that dimension. Because the inner is emptiness, whenever we are out of work, we become absolutely empty. We become like a machine thrown on the scrap heap. That is the situation in the life of most people. That should not be. It's a tragedy. Why should man enact this tragedy when there is such a profound philosophy available to him every time? This is the language you find throughout the chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. You have seen people working very loyally to an organization or the state. After some time, something goes wrong in that relationship, and then comes absolute frustration because he has seen only one side of life, never stress the other side. We have got in your British history the story of that famous Prime Minister or Foreign Minister of Henry VIII, Wolsey, who served Henry VIII with great distinction, with great dedication. Ultimately, the king rejected him. He was completely dishonored. Then he made a famous remark. It is studied in English history books. Wolsey's statement, Thomas Wolsey. If I had served God with as much devotion as I have served my king and country, he would not have deserted me in his old age. That's the famous tragic statement of Thomas Wolsey. You serve the state, and the state may as well reject you. At the end of it, throw you down like a scrap heap. Then you become frustrated, depressed as it were, because we put all the eggs only in one basket, that external basket. We didn't care to do anything within. Now this kind of attitude and this kind of regrets you find in millions of people in the modern period. Why? If the state is my enemy, why should I become my enemy? I am hurting myself all the time by neglecting my dimension of work from within. How to enrich myself from within, so that there is a joy in life to be used for a purpose which is mighty. Let me not become, I am quoting famous words of Bernard Shaw, who said, let not men become a clod of ailments and grievances, ever complaining that the world doesn't devote itself to making you happy. A clod of ailments and grievances. Millions of people today are clods of ailments and grievances, complaining, this has not done to me, state has not done this to me, people have not done this to me. I am my own enemy in this way. The state is not concerned with you. State knows only as a protective individual, it wants you. When you are finished, state has no interest in you. We forget the limitations of a political state. They are not concerned with the individual except when you are protective. When you cease to be protective, state has no interest in you. This is called the natural view of man. Spiritual view is something higher. Take nature. How does nature view a species? Say for example a fish, or a bird, or an insect, or even human being. Our Darwin will say, all the biologists will say, nature's interest in an individual is only so long as it serves nature's purpose. What is that purpose? Reproduction. As soon as reproductive period is over, nature has no interest in an organism. This is a wonderful idea in biology. Pure truth, very grim truth, but that's the truth about nature. Nature is not interested in any being which doesn't reproduce, because nature's evolution must go on. These are only instruments for that purpose. Once that is over, nature has no more interest. You are thrown on the scrap heap by nature. But is that all your dimension? No. There is a higher dimension in you. Let us not simply say we are only nature's outpost. There is a higher nature pulsing in me. This is entirely neglected in modern civilization. Entirely. There is no qualification. I am also a part of nature. So nature has finished me. I also become finished. I become high and dry, thrown on the sands. The current flows on, leaving me on the sands. That's man's situation today by following only physical nature, the external nature, by neglecting his own higher spiritual nature. Gita says, never do so. There is a profound dimension within you. Take charge of that. Nature may not be interested in that. You must be interested in it. Therefore, every work situation so handle that along with producing wealth for the community, you enrich yourself in a fundamental way, so that year after year, you become richer, spiritually, qualitatively. When you give up all work later on, you don't feel that kind of boredom, that frustration. You have so much to achieve still. You have found a new dimension of human development. Continue in that line. In this way, Gita gives us a philosophy of work which emphasizes efficiency, but efficiency at a double dimension. External, productive dimension, inward, personality dimension. Both must be rich by your work. If second is accepted, that work becomes yoga. Karma means work. Any work is karma. A machine works, that's also karma. But karma yoga, it becomes. The word yoga can be added to karma only when you add this inward efficiency to that outward efficiency. Then what becomes yoga? A path to spiritual development, a path to spiritual fulfillment. So that ordinary karma becomes karma yoga when you move in the spiritual dimension through stress on inwardness of all work. That is what Krishna expounds in the second and third chapter primarily. Later on in many other chapters as well. He says, not a single instant we are keeping quiet. Even breathing is action. Everything that we do is action. How many occasions are there to bend all these actions to spiritual development? That we are not doing. What's the nature of that spiritual development? That forms the theme of the second chapter. Original philosophy by Krishna, called Karma Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, Yoga of Buddhi, Yoga of Action. That is what you find in the second chapter in a series of verses where one beautiful stress is given. If you want to grow spiritually, you have to go beyond this tiny ego, the ego presiding over the organic system. So that is why the teaching is detachment. Detach yourself from that ego. That's not your true form. The ego is something limited. It's a new arrival in evolution. It's a wonderful new arrival in evolution. The sun has no ego. The insects and birds and mammals have no ego. Only man has this ego. Ego appears at the stage of man, the self, the concept of self. So that ego that is just appearing in me, that's not my final state. It is only the beginning of great things in me. So the ego presiding over the organic system, always seeking organic satisfactions, that ego must be transcended. Then only you rise in the spiritual level of life. Therefore, the teaching is detachment, non-attachment to the ego. You are not the ego. Ego is only, I am quoting a famous sentence from a great book on biology. In fact, we can quote modern scientific books to deal with some of these subjects which are central to Vedanta in the Upanishads and the Gita. Fortunately, many of these biological books also give us indications of the truth of what Vedanta had said ages ago. So he says there, I am quoting from The Science of Life by H.G. Wells, G.P. Wells and Julian Huxley, published somewhere in the 1920s. Whole bulky book giving the development of modern biology and towards the end giving the philosophical implications of modern biology, where they treat in one section status of the ego in evolution. That passage which I am quoting just now is a moving passage, poetic. He says there, alone and in the silence of the night and on a score of